Here, Brian, and there are plans to expand
indoctrination.
That's right.
Well, Idahoans are also concerned.
Horror shot.
That line would be moving a little bit farther west.
I'm like crying.
Nobody wants to see
dark money is influencing policy in our state.
Well, that's not how this works.
Hello there and welcome to Nowhere to Hide. This is a program where I call out bias in Idaho's legacy media, and Lord knows there's plenty to call out. But I'm actually happy to share some good news with you today. And the good news, I guess, can be summed up thusly. Let me bring up a picture here that kind of illustrates the good news I'm talking about. Those are the faces of Idaho Attorney General Raul Labrador, as well as Meridian Park mom, Sara Brady. If you remember, Sara was arrested nearly 3 years ago. It was April of 2020, after Governor Little had issued some kind of a shutdown order for much of the state. There was a lot of confusion. There was no actual law. There was just an order, and these police officers were out there trying to get people away from the park. Sara was there with her kids and other moms and their kids. And apparently an officer was telling them, you all have to leave or else you're going to be arrested, and started counting down to her like she was a child, at which point Sara said, well, are you going to arrest me? Turned around, put her hands behind her back, and he did. So it was, she was arrested. She was charged with trespassing. That's bad enough. But the fact of the matter is now, for better than 2.5 years, this case has dragged on through the Idaho courts. It took them well over a year from the time that she was arrested before she ever was able to actually go to the courtroom because of concerns over COVID. And since then, the process has just been drawn out. She's never had a chance to have a speedy trial. It's cost tens of thousands of dollars. And yet somehow we're supposed to believe that this was really being done in the interest of justice. I don't know what your definition of justice is, but if you cannot show me a victim, and by which I mean someone or something that was materially harmed, measurably harmed by her actions, it's not a crime. And yet the state persisted. Former Attorney General Lawrence Wasden refused to drop it. The governor was actually asked, well, would you consider pardoning her? And his response was in typical Brad Little fashion, I don't pardon people, even though he has pardoned people before. But I guess the bottom line is, Sara stood up to the powers that be, and she wasn't out there. She didn't go there that day for the purpose of a protest. She was asked something, and actually more, I guess, appropriately commanded something illegal and questionable by Meridian Police Department brown shirt, and she questioned his tactics and questioned why he was doing that. For challenging the powers that be, she needed to be made an example of. And I believe that's the reason why these authorities have kept her on the hook for all this time. Well, here's the good news. As of yesterday, Attorney General Raul Labrador stepped forward and said, no, we're going to dismiss the charges against Sara Brady. In fact, he announced that his office has moved to dismiss all charges pertaining to her being arrested in 2020 for taking her children to a closed playground and being charged with misdemeanor trespassing. Now, listen to this part, because this is important. The media is not really highlighting this part. This decision was prompted by a unanimous recommendation from prosecutors assigned to the case. Okay, it's hardly, yeah, Sara twisted his arm or told a sob story and, somehow managed to trick Attorney General Labrador into this. This was a unanimous decision by the prosecutors assigned to the case. And General Labrador's decision was motivated by several factors. First, there are no allegations that Ms. Brady injured any person or property or that she physically resisted officers. Second, the evidence itself makes it far from certain that any reasonable jury would convict her. And third, the state has already expended far more resources than is typical in misdemeanor cases. My goodness, this is common sense. Finally, Attorney General Labrador said, we know Idahoans have been dealing with significant government overreach. This case should never have been prosecuted. It's been a profound waste of precious taxpayer resources. And he says, going forward, we will focus on the people's resources on prosecuting child exploiters and other serious criminals, not mothers who take their kids to the park. I'm sorry, but that is such a breath of fresh air and such a huge win for Sara. In fact, having said that, let's get her take on this. So I'm here with the Meridian Park mom who was arrested almost 3 years ago during all of the COVID hysteria, Sara Walton Brady. Thank you so much for joining me here on Nowhere to Hide. Let me first start with congratulating you. I got the news yesterday, as many did, that Attorney General Raul Labrador has moved to dismiss the charges against you. Bring us up to speed on How did that come about? And what does this mean? Now that he's moved to dismiss the charges, does that mean you are in the clear, or is there still a process to go through?
Yeah. So, I mean, well, how it came about, I don't know exactly. I got a call from my lawyer and he said, "Are you alone?" And I said, "Yeah, why?" And he's like, your case has been dismissed." And I'm like, "Hey, listen," and this is actually a newer lawyer. I said, "Listen, don't joke around about that. Like that's not a funny thing." And he said, "No, I'm being serious. Your case has been dismissed." And I pull over the car on the side of the road and I sit there. Because for 3 years, almost 3 years, this has been a cloud that's hung over mine and my family's head. It's a long time to fight the state of Idaho on a misdemeanor, you know? So I pulled over the car because it wasn't safe for me to be driving at that point. And, honestly, it's still just super surreal to me. I actually just happened to have a hearing yesterday that was this was about 11 noonish maybe. And I had a hearing at 3:00 and my lawyer said, "Well, you probably don't have to be there." I said, "Well, I'm going to go because I want to hear the judge. I just want to, this is going to be like my last hearing." Because I spent I think I spent almost, was it 2 years? Got to think now. I think I spent almost 2 years never appearing before my judge in person. I didn't appear before my judge in person until I believe it was May of 22. And this started back in April of 2020, right? So anyway, we did go to the courthouse and of course, the prosecutor, the state of Idaho's there. I'm there with my lawyers. The judge comes out and basically he mentions that this filing may have been filed incorrectly. And I'm thinking, well, of course there's something wrong. And again, like I still at this point have not quite gotten you, like I'm still waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm still waiting for, oh, well, hold on just a second. I mean, to be honest, when this has gone on for this long, it's hard for your mind to go, "Oh, okay, right. Okay, that's good," right? Because you have to remember that the courts canceled 2 trials that I got ready for. One in February of 21 and one in August of 21. And so in the August of 21, I spent probably close to $18,000 in legal fees. And so again, after having been in this process for so long, it's hard to really believe anything is really real until it's really real. So yes, technically, I believe, I mean, the judge it's technically not been approved by the courts to actually be dismissed. So I think there's actually a hearing set. I want to say, I think it was the next Thursday, the 12th, January 12th. Although I might not have to go to that one if it's actually dismissed on record. But as of right now, I'm going to celebrate. And then, halfway, there's a part of me that's holding my breath because it is hard to even comprehend. I didn't know Raul was going to do this. I've had a lot of people ask, "Have you talked to him?" Whatever, the only time I think I've ever really talked to Attorney General Labrador was, I've seen him in passing, but a political figure. I don't know him personally. We've never really talked privately. I've seen him places, said hi. The only time I've really ever talked to me, is I love political fashion, and I happen to make this dress because he, to have previous Attorney General Lawrence Wasden prosecute you for so long, there started, of course I'm going to not want to vote for you. I'm not going to vote for the person that's been mercilessly prosecuting me for almost 2 years and saying I've been ready since they wanted to prosecute this case. I'm not going to vote for you. So anyway, he had said something like, "Your dress is beautiful," or something like that. It was not a benign, but now I have people questioning, "Have you donated to his campaign? Did blah blah blah? Did you have something to do with it? Now you're friends with him?" And I just want to say for the record, what's that?
The conspiracy?
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because the media is always trying to make a story out of something that's not really there. They want to look for what really it could be to make people look bad. That's really what the media is about, right? The left-wing media, they don't really care about the truth. In fact, just a side note, I was just communicating with Brian Holmes, and he did kind of a hit piece on me back in 2020. I didn't ever have time to really refute it because I was dealing with so many things back then. But so he reached back out to me for an interview now for my. They said, "Well, is this going to be a live interview?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Well, I just really," we had a conversation. I said, "Well, what's really important about this case, what everyone really needs to know is you can be mad that it was dismissed, but what you have to know when Mayor Simison and the chief of police, Bastard Chia, are complaining about the rule of law, you need to understand the rule of law was violated when I was arrested at a play in an open area of that park when I never ever stepped inside any caution tape. I just want people to know that. Like, go to Meridian Parks and Rec and you ask them for that video. Go and look and see where that playground equipment had actually been closed off. They go look and see where my body was at. I never broke the law. And that's really the pinnacle moment of why I was belligerent to an officer who was counting down to me when I wasn't breaking the law. And people don't understand that. That's what it was about. I wasn't trying to violate any COVID policy. Someone said, well, were you trying to send a message to the governor? I said, no, but if me going to a playground, asking questions about the closure, standing in an area of park, me getting counted down to, then getting arrested sends a message to anyone, well, then I hope they hear that message. Yeah, then don't arrest moms and playgrounds for not breaking the law.
Something
It's
that
pretty simple.
I've seen in the media coverage since the Attorney General has moved to dismiss these charges is they're 100% on the side of the Meridian police chief and on the Meridian mayor, and they're just really questioning, well, is this a slap in the face to law enforcement? Is this a slap in the face to the authorities? And not one of them can seem to grasp that the injustice, the only victim in this case that I have seen is you, having to sit here and go through 2.5, almost 3 years of lawfare where the process is used to punish you financially and emotionally and punish your reputation. But nobody can show us who's the victim. In fact, I think Raul Labrador in his dismissal notice said, look, you didn't break anything. You didn't harm anybody. You didn't even resist the officer. Why were we expending so many state resources to try to go after a misdemeanor conviction for trespassing?
I have so many things to say that. I mean, first of all, after being married to a policeman for, I think his career is now 20 plus years, 21 years almost. Do you guys really understand what a criminal is? Okay, because I'm going to tell you, pedophiles, rapists, murderers. Okay, that's the top. And there's a part of me that wants to say, you know what? If in the state of Idaho we're complaining about a park mom who they think scot-free, because it's not scot-free. I don't really feel scot-free when I've spent tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands. I mean, just the stress that it puts on your family's life for standing on wood chips. That was my crime, right? We're not even, oh gosh, I didn't steal any money. I didn't steal a car. I can't even say that I was trespassed because honestly, I wasn't even trespassing. The crazy thing here is I'm literally an innocent person. And that's why I've maintained my innocence for over almost 3 years now. I was offered a plea deal back in January of 22, right? Now a year ago, they offered me a $50 fine. That's what they offered me. So if what is Meridian Police, what does Bastard Chia and Simpson really want? Is it $50? Because you guys, I've got $50 and I'll give it to you right now. If you're short $50 and the city needs $50, because because I could take the plea deal and it's $50. That's my punishment. See, because this really isn't about justice for them. That's really not what it's about. They're upset that someone was defiant to someone, a police officer who was in the wrong. And they don't like to have it pointed out that they're in the wrong. And they don't like to have a citizen continue to stand strong for almost 3 years and insist that she did nothing wrong. Because really, if you think about it, Brian, what kind of message does it send back to the state of Idaho if a mother is so insistent in her principles and knowing that she's in the right to be taken away from two of her children that has caused trauma in their lives every time we go to a playground? Are you going to get arrested today? That's the question I get asked. What kind of mother who knows that what's happening is so wrong to her that she's willing to say, you know what, fine, arrest me for being in an open area of the park. I have done nothing wrong. And if me opening my mouth, and maybe I wasn't in the best mood that day, but really at the end of the day, I was plenty fine until I just started getting counted down to. I was plenty fine until I realized that they were only going to enforce, or not even enforce, they were going to arbitrarily decide, we're going to arrest this mom. Guess what? They never arrested anybody else. They went back, they put caution tape back up. Did anybody else, hey, Bastard Chia and Simonson, tell me why nobody else got arrested? If this is really about the rule of law, where are the other people that should be in the court system? What about all those other mothers that went back and ripped off that tape in front of you? Because guess what? I never ripped off the tape. So if this is really about the rule of law, do your job and actually put your money where your mouth is and actually enforce it. Because guess what? They actually did break the law. If you want to actually, start picking at people. So this isn't about the fact that, oh, we like the rule of law and we need to have it upheld. No. They found someone that they were upset with that said, no, I'm not okay with you doing this. And that is really the biggest danger to a tyrannical government, is a mother who is willing to stand on her principle to the point she does it in front of her children. She'll give up almost 3 years of her life life tens of thousands of dollars because she knows that she's innocent. So, hey, again, I have $50 for you, Mayor Simmons and Investor She. If this is really about the fact that, because I could have taken the plea deal, and how much jail time did you want me to spend, you guys? How much jail time did you want me to spend? Because what if I had been found guilty and the judge didn't give me jail time? Would you have then complained as well? I just want to hear you say it, that you hate mothers. That's what it is, you guys. You hate mothers.
Well, I think they believe in infallibility. And the anger that I see on the part of some people, well, this is just a terrible message, because it shows that you can be, belligerent or you can be defiant to people. And I don't think people understand. Look, I've been in the freedom fight for a long time, and it is rare when someone has to be courageous and stand up to the threat of being arrested. Usually just the threat is enough to snap most people back in line. But there is no polite, universally acceptable way that you're going to be able to stand up and assert your rights without somebody being offended. In this case, it was the cop who was butthurt, and his command, presence wasn't enough to sway you. And, I'm sorry you've had to go through this, but Sara, I got to tell you, my admiration for you has just grown as I've watched you go through this process. I know it wasn't easy, but where they expected all that pressure to crush you or to at least bring you into compliance, you've become a very effective and diehard freedom fighter. And frankly, I think you've been a good example for other people, which is probably what they feared in the first place.
Yeah, I will give myself credit for the fact that, here's the deal. The real big win here for me, I'm so thankful. Attorney General Raul Labrador, thank you for being one man in a sea of many who did, you did something, and that means so much to me. It means so much because there were so many people that could have done something and they remained silent in the face of evil. They remained silent in someone who is being maliciously prosecuted far beyond any sort of justice could have ever enacted if I had actually broken the law. And so, but what I want to stop here and say, the real win for me is to know that I had the gumption to make it to the very end. I was able to do it. And I'll tell you, it's not easy. It's not easy and it's exhausting, but it's totally worth it. It's worth it to know that I fought and maintained my innocence to the very end. And I was ready to go to jail for it. I was ready. I've been ready for almost 3 years. I've been ready to go to trial. I've been ready to stand there for the judge to say, okay, Ms. Brady, you're going to be getting X amount. I've been ready. And so to know that I was able to hold out, because if I had just capitulated and taken that $50, I would have never gotten to see the fruits of my work, of the being able to, stay strong. So I absolutely hope that there's moms out there and there's families out there that can see, that there's citizens out there that can see, hey, you know what? Sometimes good actually does win, and it's so worth it. It's so worth it to know that, hey, you got to stick it out to the very end, because if you can't stick it out, you may as well not even do it halfway. And that was something I had to decide in the very beginning. Should I take a plea deal? Because why go halfway? Why go halfway? What a waste of your time. Just give up in the early parts, because you're going to go through a lot of unnecessary stress, money, heartache, et cetera, et cetera. Make a decision, do it to the bitter end. And fortunately for me, there's not a bitter end for me. I've been able to experience a very wonderful success in maintaining my innocence.
Sara, I have to ask, is there a part of you that wishes that it could have gone to trial? I have a hunch that if this had gone before a jury, this would not have gone well for the state. Maybe some jurors would have been swayed by the state's arguments, but I'm thinking that the combined experience of those jurors, along with 12 simultaneous BS detectors working, would probably have gone in your favor.
There is absolutely a part of me that almost in a way is like, oh, I've been so ready to face my accusers in court. I've been so ready, because here's the deal. The media didn't really talk about really what happened. I haven't really truly been able to defend myself. And there is a part of me that feels a loss of that I could not stand there and say, no, this is what really happened. Because there would be some vindication in being found not guilty. Although I'm sure Mayor Simpson and Chief Pastor Chia would say now that I rigged the jurors, right? I just, sorry, they probably would complain there. But yeah, there is a piece in me. But at the end of the day, I feel like this is what was supposed to happen. And if that's what was supposed to happen, then I'll take it, because I'm so thankful that we finally have a leader in this elected position. We don't as a governor, right? Not my governor, but at least I'm so happy in this position. We have a man of honor. The fact that he would risk his political reputation to do this for just one person. Now, I have been, again, a political prisoner for now almost 3 years, but the fact that he would do that restores a little bit of faith in the leaders in our system, not all of them, right? Because here, you see after this happens, people start showing their true colors, right? And wicked men only really get mad when someone does something good, right? And so anyone that's complaining about this happening, does not truly know the facts of this case, because I will admit that there's probably ignorant people and that don't understand really what's happening. Number two, if you're mad, it's not really about justice. It's about your vindictiveness and your inability to actually understand the rule of law.
Yeah, I still wonder, how anybody with a straight face could defend the arrest, defend the charges being carried all this time, and still be able to maintain that, well, but who is the victim? Who was the victim in that case? Can you show me? Was it the park? Was it the police officer?
It was them.
This was just the state having to impose its will and not being willing to back down and say, okay, we made a mistake. So like you, I applaud Attorney General Labrador for having the courage to do this. And he's taking lumps for it too. There are people who think, why, this is terrible. This is just political cronyism. I think you and I both know this is an adult finally stepping up and taking charge of the situation when nobody else dared to.
Finally, we have a leader in that position. Finally, and it's so wonderful to know that he is going to be someone who takes charge, is willing to take the brunt of things when he really shouldn't be taking the brunt. This is Wasden's fault. Wasden should have dismissed this a long time ago. And for anyone that says that this is not Attorney General Raul Labrador's jurisdiction, it is his jurisdiction. You can message me. I have the legal paperwork that shows that was taken over by the state of Idaho. It's his case. He sadly inherited it when Wasden left. But now he has to wipe up a poopy mess that Wasden left, and so somebody has to do it. So either he's going to let literally an innocent woman continue to be prosecuted mercilessly by the state of Idaho, or he's going to do the right thing, which is what he did and said, we're not going to do this anymore. What are our true crimes here? And look at me, I've been prosecuted for how long? I didn't drag it out in the first, year and a half. It was the state. It was the courts. It's the state of Idaho. It's the same entity, right? It's all the state of Idaho, and so for you to complain that there's some sort of injustice here, you should also be complaining about the injustice of not giving me a speedy trial. Otherwise, you don't really care about our system. You don't really care about our republic. You don't really care about the founders. What you want to do, here, seriously, let me give you a tissue for your liberal tears. That's all I'm going to say about that.
It is really hard not to find a little bit of satisfaction in the people who are seething and coping right now with the idea, I can't believe she got away with this. But Sara, I'm very happy to see that this ordeal is finally coming to an end. What's the takeaway? If there's a central thing that you'd like those who are watching this to take away, what's the message you would like them to bring with them?
Never bow down. Isn't that what it is? Never bow down. I'm totally 100% in agreement with submitting myself to a good government, right? But I will not submit myself to a tyrannical government. I will not do that, because that means I'm handing over a tyrannical government to my children. So at the end of the day, maintain your innocence to your death. Maintain it. Do anything you can to maintain your innocence.
Amen. And don't sell your soul for $50 in a plea deal, because that was not a great deal. Sara, thank you so much for taking the time to visit with me. I know the media, everybody wants to talk to you right now, but thanks for taking some time to be here on Nowhere to Hide.
Thank you for your support, Brian. We'll see you later.
All right. I was very happy to have that time to visit with her, and I wish her the best going forward. I'm not going to put words in her mouth, but Sara may have just been a mom and just kind of going about her business. But whoever thought, well, we're going to get this lady to, bend the knee and to admit that we're right and she's wrong. Holy cow. You have created something. I don't think you realize what you have created in terms of you have a dedicated freedom fighter who is out there not only inspiring other people to stand up for their rights, but can you imagine her kids are going to be raised to value freedom in a way that they probably wouldn't have had they not had to see their mom go through this. Now, let's talk about some of the discomfort that is being felt by people in the press. Oh, they are so upset. Look at this headline. This is from the IdahoPress.com. Meridian Police Chief and Mayor condemn Labrador's decision to dismiss charges of Meridian woman. Oh, they are definitely bent out of shape. And I expect politicians to be petty, but this is setting the bar so low. In a statement, Meridian Mayor Robert Simison said the decision to dismiss the case was appalling and a slap in the face to the Meridian police, public servants, and law-abiding citizens. The Attorney General's apparent philosophy to selectively dismiss cases of his choosing and endorse illegal behavior. Really, do you want to flesh that out for us there, Mayor? Or are you just, blowing off steam? I don't know where you pulled that idea from, but I hope you stood up before you reached for it. Anyway, he says it's abhorrent. These actions are distressing, and Attorney General Labrador's decision today is a breach of his oath of office to uphold the rule of law. I think Sarah explained pretty plainly. The rule of law was under threat, but not by her actions, but by petty bureaucrats and functionaries who felt like, well, if we say it, you ought to jump. Sometimes people forget. Government exists to serve us. Okay, not the other way around. We are not the servants. We are not the subordinates to government. It exists to keep us free, and that is its primary job. And when it operates outside of those boundaries, guess what? It's illegitimate. It's usurping power. Not a good idea. By the way, not to be outdone, Meridian Police Chief Tracy Bastarachia said in a statement that conversations with the Attorney General's office as late as December 30th indicated the case would move forward. Now, the question, he says, is what changed since Friday? We certainly hope this is not the type of political grandstanding, like he's doing right now, we should expect coming out of the Attorney General's office moving forward. We're supposed to be a nation ruled by law, not a nation ruled by politics. Okay, back it up there, Chief. This was a politically motivated prosecution. Anybody with common sense could have recognized that, first of all of the lockdown procedures, all of the lockdown foofara did nothing. How do we know this? Because pretty much everybody got the damn virus anyway. So let's not pretend that, she violated very serious protocols. That wasn't even what she was charged with. She showed what I guess some would term contempt of cop, and this police officer, this enforcer, as opposed to a peace officer, was hurt. It upset his ego. He had to show that he was in charge. I'll show you how this game goes, because to him it is a game. And unfortunately, he has politicians, including a mayor and a police chief, who apparently backed him up and were willing to take this to the furthest degree. How far were they willing to go? I don't know. I don't know if I want to know. Would it have been decades? What would it have been? The Attorney General's apparent philosophy to selectively dismiss cases of his choosing and to endorse illegal behavior is abhorrent. I support the people's right to assemble for peaceful protest, but that right does not include ignoring lawful orders. It wasn't a lawful order, or being free from the legal ramifications of their actions. That sounds like somebody just making up law. I am the law. Judge Dredd would be shaking his head going, dude, calm down. Unfortunately, the mayor says, or the police chief says, this incident also led to harassment of our police officers at their private homes and doxing public servants. Those were peaceful protests. And if you don't want to be protested as a tyrant, don't do tyrannical things. These actions are distressing, and Attorney General Labrador's decision today is a breach of his oath of office to uphold the rule of law. No, he is not supposed to simply rubber stamp whatever a cop or a mayor or a police chief or a governor says to do. Now, there are laws that do need to be upheld, but even then, there are times when the matter of justice has to be brought before a jury or otherwise adjudicated. Even officers have discretion. It never had to come to this. So this is not a threat to the rule of law. It's not somebody, it's not somebody disrespecting your authority. They're denying that you had that authority in the first place. Anyhow, moving on. One final thought here. I call upon the Idaho legislature to enact legislation to protect all Idahoans from harassment in their homes. Hopefully then something good can come from this unfortunate decision, stated Mayor Simison. Look, I know that there are people who are on the conservative side of the aisle and people who are on the freedom side who say it is going too far to protest outside of somebody's home. However, we do have a First Amendment right to peaceably assemble. And sometimes that may include peaceably assembling outside the residence of someone who is acting on the part of the state in a way that is contrary to the proper limits of government. Now, I'm not saying it's the solution every time, but for them to think, well, we need to pass a law or something to protect us, I got an easier solution. Just don't do stupid things. Don't try to subjugate people. Don't try to act like a tyrant. and then play the victim, because this is what butthurt bullies do. They act like the victim when somebody stands up to them. And this time you got backed down. You got owned by a mom who wasn't willing to compromise and wasn't willing to back down and just, okay, I'll submit. I'll be law-abiding like everybody else. She was victimizing no one. And I guess what we need to keep in mind is there is a vast difference between legal and illegal and moral and immoral. Just because a cop says, well, this is legally what I'm allowed to do, does not mean that's the right thing to do. There's a moral consideration, and there is a higher moral authority than the state. This is something that you and I and everybody else has to have figured out for ourselves. If you look to the state to be the source of your morality, you're leaning on a broken staff. It's bad news. All right, one final note. I thought this was really funny. This is something that Sara actually posted back towards the very first of the year on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. Any New Year's resolutions? Here we go. Captain Malcolm Reynolds. I aim to misbehave. Okay, it is my sincere hope that there are plenty of people who likewise aim to misbehave, not because they want to be troublemakers, not because they're setting out to make a name for themselves or otherwise make people uncomfortable, but because it is required. If you wish to be free, if you wish to hand freedom down to your children and to your grandchildren, you have got to be willing to be unpopular at times, to draw the line and to stick to your principles and to not yield. Sara is a perfect example of someone who did it and finally prevailed. That's the good news today. I'm Brian Hyde, and this is Nowhere to Hide.
Are biased, the Idaho Press Club are biased, all media, newspaper, radio.
To be completely blunt here, Brian, and there are plans to expand
indoctrination.
That's right.
Idahoans are also concerned.
Horror shot. That line would be moving a little bit farther west.
I'm like crying.
Nobody wants to see
Dark money is influencing policy in our state.
well, that's not